it's over. Like I'm in the hotel room crying, like to my friend. Like I'm literally, I think it's over.
Bigspin Podcast, Episode 1. Today's guest is none other than your friendly neighborhood cult leader, Slushgod, a.k.a. government name, drop here, Clayton McCarthy. First off, thank you for doing this with me, Episode 1.
Let's do it.
It's wild to think that this has been in the works, like we said, for a year.
Yeah, it's nuts.
It is.
I'm glad we're finally doing it.
It is nuts. Before we even get started, because we're going to talk about Baby Slush Cult. We're going to talk about Slush, the Mini Mart, all things Clayton related. But first, we got to touch on it. We got to talk about it.
Where are we going?
Where are we going with this? The ski mask.
Ooh.
First interview without a ski mask.
True.
How did we get here?
Shout out to my face.
Shout out your beautiful face. How did we get to the point where we now have the privilege of sitting with Mr. Slushgod without a mask?
So there's like a cool answer to this, and then there's also the realistic answer to this. I was a secret for the first 10 years of the brand. When I started the company, I didn't want people to focus on me because I wasn't cool. I wasn't trying to be like a cool guy. I wanted people to focus on the company and on the product and on, like the entity itself as a brand. So I never shared my voice. I never shared my name. I never shared pictures of myself. For the first 4 years, there was literally nothing, like not even my feet or my hands or anything. Mm-hmm. And whenever I went to an event or if I got asked to do some kind of interview, we made the ski mask kind of out of necessity. At the time, ski masks were also kind of cool to make, so It worked out both ways. But so the first 10 years, I was completely anonymous, and it made everything really fun because if you went to an event, you wouldn't know who I was. I could spy on people talking shit at the booth if I wanted to because they wouldn't know who I was at all.
You were just the husky guy in the mask.
Yeah, and it was fun, and it made the people who did meet me at events, because I didn't wear the mask the whole time of the event.
Right.
But the people that did meet me at the event kind of felt like they were a part of the secret. So it made people feel instantly more attached to the brand because it was like, oh, you don't know what he looks like? Like, I know what he looks like because I met him at whatever event we did. And it kind of was extremely tiring, and it just got old over time. And
it was probably hot in the mask, too.
Eventually, it fucking sucked wearing it.
Yeah.
And eventually I just got over it. And then we did a unmasking, and I kind of just started sharing more of myself eventually through social media. And I still don't really post photos of myself on social media, but I don't care if I'm in the background of a photo. I don't care if I'm in a video. And obviously we're live, baby.
Absolutely.
We're going to be on TV now, but that's kind of the cool answer. Yeah. The more realistic answer was that when we opened the store, it just didn't really make sense anymore to be a secret, because I would post on Instagram the secret identity, cool guy, whatever.
Yeah.
And then someone would be like, what do you mean? You're Clayton. I met you last Friday at the shop. You work there. Right. So it's it just didn't really make sense anymore. So practically it was just kind of well, it's time just to end this. You know what I mean? 10-year anniversary, I felt 10 years was plenty of me being not secret. And
it's 10 years this year, right? Or was it 2023?
2023 was 10 years.
Wow.
So,
well, congrats.
Thank you. Yeah, it's a long time to have a brand, for sure.
Absolutely. When it comes to yourself as Clay, right? How we know you now, and Slushgod, would you say that Slushgod was an alter ego, or was it just its own kind of part of the brand, or would you say it's the same dude just wearing a mask?
I mean, Slushgod kind of happened on accident, because when I started the brand, there was kind of this shift in the industry, the clothing industry, where people didn't care so much about what the product was or what the brand meant or what the brand name was. It was more or less who was behind the brand.
Right.
Like Diamond Supply is a good example, right? Like people liked Diamond Supply because they made cool stuff, but to be honest, people liked that brand because Nicky Diamonds, the owner of it, was like this cool guy dude, pro skater, driving around like Lamborghinis and shit.
Right.
And the shift kind of happened where people started caring less about companies and they started caring about more of the people behind the companies. And I knew that going into this, but I also knew that I didn't want to be Nicky Diamonds. I didn't want to be like, I just wanted to be like the humble dude behind the scenes, making cool shit happen. And it'd be more fun to be mysterious. So with that being said, I knew that I have to somehow play the game.
Yeah.
And there has to be someone who runs the company. I just don't want it to be me. So Slushgod kind of happened out of that like necessity of like, I have to post from somewhere and I have to have like there needs to be like a mascot, but I don't want it to be me. And rather than making like an actual mascot, it just ended up being me in a mask. And the Slushgod thing just kind of like happened. Like I didn't name myself that. It just ended up being that thing.
That'd make it 10 times more weird.
And yeah, it kind of worked. And as soon as it started working, I was like, okay, we just need to roll with this and see where it can go. And it's weird to kind of think like now I don't do that. But
yeah,
I mean, 90% of the people at the event still call me that just because like they probably don't know my real name.
Well, they're going to know.
And also
now.
It's just easier to remember, you know, like it's easier to remember Slushgod than it is anything else. And it's, you know, it kind of separates the people who are closer to me, the people who are not as close to me.
Yeah. Well, being that we're like, what is it, like almost 2-3 years out from No Mask, would you say that there has been, like, could you speak on any downsides to losing the mask?
I mean, people know who I am now. So like if I go to another event or if I go.
But is that really a downside though?
No, it's not a downside, but it's definitely, I can't be incognito as much as I used to be.
Right.
There was a time that I got recognized at Disneyland because of the socks that I was wearing, which like was a really funny, weird story. Cause like,
damn.
Well, cause I used to post pictures of my feet. Cause I was kind of like all like, I didn't want to post a picture of my face. So like, it would just be like my feet walking down a path.
Right.
And someone recognized the socks that I was wearing in line. And
so
in the line was like,
post them for free. You wouldn't sell the feet pics?
not my feet pics, but yeah, with shoes on.
Okay.
And someone recognized me in line and was like, yo, like, are you Slushcult? And I was like, oh shit, like that's crazy. Wow. Now it's just like if people recognize me, they recognize me.
Yeah. If you could go back in time and bring the whole mask back, or like, or go back to where you never did a face reveal, like, do you think that that's something you'd be into, or no? Do you think it was the right move?
No, I think it was the right move. And we didn't do like, I never wanted to do like a face reveal because that's just weird and like egotistical.
Right.
It was more or less just a soft launch of like not caring anymore. Right. And that's definitely the way that I would have done it again.
Yeah.
Because like, it doesn't matter how good of a reaction you get when you do a face reveal. It's never going to be the reaction that you really want.
Right.
So like the soft thing was kind of the way to go.
Okay.
And like I said, this is probably the first time that some people are seeing it ever. So
yeah,
we're kind of still in that phase.
Other than yourself and edits and a couple pictures here and there, there's not too much video of you without the mask. Because even doing research for the interview, it's like everything I watched had like voice effects and a mask and stuff like that. Yeah,
to be honest, it was a pain to do. Like it was a lot more work to be a secret. Yeah, it made it fun, but it was definitely taxing for sure.
Okay. We're going to get into Slushcult. I just wanted to touch on the mask thing. I feel like it's super relevant, right? If anyone has known the brand, or maybe not, right? Because it's only been 2 years without the mask, but we had to touch on the mask. But now I want to talk to you, obviously, about the little Slushcult wall of toys and tech decks and fingerboards, little wall that you got going on here.
My memories.
Right, there you go. Speaking of your memories, the story of Slushgod, story of young baby Clay. Let's start there. Let's start at the beginning and work our way forward. Where are you from? And granted, for context, we've been friends a long time. I don't even know the answer to this. Okay, I lied. I watched the podcast last night, so I kind of know where you are. Where you're from. So give it to us. Where are you from?
So I kind of have always been split between Inland Empire, like Riverside, California, and Orange County. Growing up, 90% of my family lived in Orange County, and the family business that my dad worked for was in Orange County. So I always felt very attached to Orange County.
Yeah.
But I grew up in Riverside because for whatever reason, my parents had the idea instead of living where they work to like move to Riverside and get a bigger house and then commute, which my dad ended up hating forever because it's like if anyone's driven on a freeway in California, you know what a dumb idea that was. But
when you said Riverside in Orange County, I was like, dude, that sucks.
Yeah, exactly.
That's such a whack drive.
That was my life. Like my grandparents, all my aunts and uncles all lived here in Orange County. So I always felt very attached to this, which was weird because like even growing up in Riverside, I never felt like it was really home. It just felt like the place I had to live before I could leave.
Yeah.
And that's like pretty much what I did as soon as I was like 18 was leave as soon as I could. But yeah, I mean, Inland Empire, shout out to Inland Empire, I guess.
Shout out Big Fontana.
Yeah. But yeah, I mean, going all the way back,
I mean, yeah. So, I mean, going just to kind of touch on where you were, in regards to Riverside, right? So was it you and your immediate family? So do you have any siblings or?
Yeah, I have a half sister.
Okay.
Who's 10 years older than me. So we kind of grew up together, but she was a lot more older. So like,
yeah.
She also didn't live with us full time.
Yeah. 10 years is a huge gap. So even if you're raised in the same house, you're like into different things.
Yeah.
So when you say that like half the family was split, was it like you, half sister, mom, dad, Riverside, everyone else, Orange County or?
Yeah, pretty much the whole rest of my family lived out here. And then my dad's, not my dad's, but like the family business that my dad worked for, my great grandpa invented the scissor lift, which is like a construction working tool where like it basically makes it where you can go up in the air like a automatic ladder. I don't know if anyone's been to like a skate demo or anything where like they throw shit off like a big giant thing. It's like my great grandfather invented that big giant thing.
I feel like this is your Gretchen Wieners moment. It's like, oh, my father invented the toaster strudel.
So
that's pretty sick.
So like all throughout my life, that was my dad's job, was building construction equipment. And that was like what my whole family did in Orange County. So he was always there, like from like 4 o'clock in the morning until like 6 o'clock at night. My dad was in Orange County working in the factory, building construction equipment, basically.
Scissor lifts.
Yeah. So yeah, I grew up very blue collar, but definitely learned at a very early age that like I could work for myself because that's what my dad always worked for himself since he was a teenager.
Yeah, that's kind of what I was thinking. So do you think that that's where, because I mean, essentially you start your own business, like it's not just something you do overnight, right? Do you feel like it's something that has kind of stuck with you since you were a kid? Like when did you kind of realize like, okay, like I want to do something for myself?
I think it was mostly right away. Like I started my first, I wouldn't call it a business, but like I tried to do my first like thing ever in like 3rd grade.
Really?
Like I was making t-shirts in 3rd grade. I wasn't doing it the right way. I was mostly using like stencils that I would cut out of cardboard and like use bleach because I didn't know what screen printing was.
Okay, so like,
but I was making shirts. I taught myself how to sew in like 4th grade, and like tried to make wallets and like other dumb stuff that I could sew at the time.
Wow.
And yeah, I kind of like throughout my years had different dumb ideas that I would kind of like pursue, but like the entrepreneur part of my life has always been there. I don't know if it's from my dad working for himself. It's definitely like a subconscious thing that I didn't actively choose.
I mean, just kind of pick up on that.
Yeah, it's definitely, I wanted to have my own thing like since I could remember. Yeah. That thing changed over time of what it was.
I mean, because it's not just wanting to make something, like wanting to like be your own boss, but it's also like creating something, right?
Yeah, I was always a creative kid. I always drew. I was very like into art, and yeah, it was never like a business. It was never like a 3rd grade Clayton being like, I'm going to start a business. Like it was more or less like, I just want to make cool shit that people can appreciate and like.
That's sick.
And as soon as I saw people wanting that, like as soon as you see someone want something that you made, it's like, oh, that feels good. I want to like keep doing that over and over again, you know, like, and I think that just kind of grew over time, and it eventually led to this.
That's sick. Considering in 3rd grade, I was trying to figure out how to use a braided belt. Yeah. So no, I mean, that's pretty sick. So when it comes to like kid Clayton, would you say that you were like one of the popular kids? Like, how would you describe yourself as a kid? Like, what was your social status in school?
I was always the fat kid, so that helped.
Same.
I've been a big kid all my life and still am. But yeah, I was always pretty popular. I mean, I went to a school that had a very small like population, so early on it was definitely, there wasn't really a choice. Like there was like 40 kids in my class, so it was like you kind of hung out with everybody forcefully. But when I got into like elementary school and high school, like I kind of always ended up being one of the, at least in the popular-ish group.
Okay.
And I think part of that is just because like I found skateboarding and like extreme sports pretty early on.
Right.
So like, I guess in my vision, I was a part of the cool club, but like, was that cool club actually cool in the high school? Probably not. Like we were still getting punked and beat up
Like
by the jocks and stuff.
Popular kid of the unpopular kids.
Yeah, I say I was a popular kid amongst the nerds who liked skateboarding and BMX and dirt bikes and that kind of shit.
Absolutely. When it comes to like your hobbies in high school, like skateboarding and art and stuff like that, were there any, like, who were like some of your early influences? Like, did you have any like family members that kind of encouraged your art, encouraged your creative side, or?
I mean, my family always encouraged my art. Like my mom definitely still has probably drawings and shit when I was a kid.
Right.
I don't know if I had necessarily inspiration with art. It was more or less just like trying to do something. Like it didn't even have to be art. Like I never call myself an artist. I still don't call myself an artist. Like I went to art school, but it doesn't make you an artist. I just know how to do stuff on the computer. But it was more like I just always wanted to create something that people could get stoked on. And I think like the earliest influence of that was more or less just like growing up idolizing skateboarding and being at the skate shops like every day. Like there's the reason why I don't care and like encourage people to come like loiter at the mini mart and hang out and like I don't care if you have $1 in your pocket or if you have $100 in your pocket is because like when I was a kid, that was me. I went to the skate shop every single day after school with no money, no intention of buying anything, just literally like lingering in the stores and asking dumb questions and being that kid.
Yeah, I feel like if you're not like a skater and you didn't grow up like that, you kind of don't realize that shop culture is like a super big part of skate shops. Like you always have those people that like you said, like not necessarily loiter, but hang out, ask questions. You know what I mean? Hang out outside the shop. So perfect segue into the next section, right? Because I want to talk about now. I mean, because I think obviously with Slushcult being a massive name in fingerboarding, it obviously ties back to your skateboarding roots. So talk to me about your first real experience with like skateboarding.
So when I grew up, there was a kid named Justin who was like
Shout
my
out Justin.
Childhood friend. Yeah, rest in peace. But he was like the kid in the neighborhood that skated. I always had like a BMX bike, and there was like other kids in the neighborhood that had kind of whatever. Back then it was very like, I don't know if it's just because of where I grew up or if it's because like there really was only like 4 kids in my whole neighborhood, like that were around my age that we could hang out with. Nobody just like skateboarded or rode bikes or rode a scooter or rode a dirt bike, or like it was like we kind of just all, like I always make fun of Dylan, like I call him like all-terrain vehicle, because like that's what I grew up
like
with. Everyone that I knew rode bikes, skateboarded, snowboarded, rode sleds down dirt fucking hills until we got hurt. Like everyone that I knew just did everything outside. Obviously I'm older, so like I grew up half with the internet, half without the internet. So like my early on memories are all just like doing dumb shit outside until we got in trouble or hurt or whatever.
It was one of those be home when the street lights come on.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And so Justin was kind of the pinnacle for skateboarding in our lives. And because he was a couple years older, he like kind of introduced us to the skate shops and introduced us to skate videos and, you know, other stuff that I won't mention, but it was kind of,
we're trying to stay monetized.
Yeah,
so
he was like the older dude in my crew where like we all looked up to him both in good and bad ways, but he like almost like immediately meeting him, like skateboarding was like his thing.
Yeah.
And so because I hung out with him all the time, it quickly became my thing. And I got my first skateboard. I don't even know. I was probably like 12 and sucked at it. I was terrible at it.
Heck yeah.
I never got very good at it. I could like roll down the street and ollie. I was terrible at it. That's why I don't ever claim to be a skateboarder. I don't ever claim to be like this core skater that owns a fingerboard shop. But skateboarding was always very close to my heart, and I always considered myself like to be involved in skateboarding. I just was really bad at it. Right. So when I didn't progress the way that my other friends did, I pivoted to BMX because it was like, oh, I can do this. I feel more comfortable on this because I kind of grew up more on a bike, and I can still hang out with all these guys and not be a skater, but like we still wear the same clothes, we still watch the same videos, whatever. And yeah, there was like 2 or 3 shops that we used to go to. One was called CNC Ride Shop, and that was a shop that like I literally, like I lived in that shop. One of my cousins worked there. I ended up kind of just, I never worked there, but I definitely did a lot of stuff for free there. And yeah, like that skate shop culture to me started at a young age and really kind of showed me what I can be and what I sometimes shouldn't be or should be. And that's something that like immediately goes into like why I wanted to create my own store, was because like the skate shop culture, you can't fake it. Like you can't, I mean, I know a lot of people like talk trash on like the younger generation now where it's like, they just don't have the same kind of logic and rules that we did growing up. Yeah. I think a lot of that is just because of like, they don't have those places to go, right? They have the internet, which is like a massive kind of storm of good and a lot of bad and weirdness in between. But they don't have that same kind of like, hey, we're going to go to this shop and like the older guys there are going to teach us what to do, what not to do, what to say, what not to say.
Kind of learn from the elders.
Yeah, I always equate it to like, I call it big homies. So like when I grew up, there was always the older dude who was like, kind of weird that we hung out with because he was older and like smoked cigarettes at the skate shop. But also like if you said something out of pocket, like you were getting slapped in the back of the head and you'd realize like, oh, I'm not going to say that again. Like, and then, but then you would also see like cool shit. Like you would see like if the homie broke his board or if the homie needed help buying something, he'd be like, oh, yo, dude, like I got you. I'll give you a discount. Or so to me, it was kind of, I learned kind of who I wanted to be and like who I wanted to kind of support and just really like what I wanted to do. Like as soon as I got involved in skate shops, I immediately was like, I want to work here. I want to do this. I want to be involved. I want to go to trade shows, all that stuff. And
I mean, being at the Mini Mart, I mean, you can definitely get that sense of like skate shop culture. So you can definitely tell that had an effect on you. And granted, we'll get more into the Mini Mart, but going back to skateboarding, what would you say, just to name a few, what would you say are some of your favorite skateboard companies growing up, and who were some of your favorite pro skaters?
Andrew Reynolds, dude, Andrew Reynolds,
the boss,
Andrew Reynolds. Of course, Gons. I don't think I really appreciated Gons until I was older, but I mean, Gons is the GOAT. But yeah, I mean, I grew up kind of in the heyday of like the Tony Hawk video game era, right? Like I was the exact age when that game came out.
But here's the real question. Who was your player, your go-to player for Tony Hawk? Was it Andrew Reynolds?
It was definitely a mix between Reynolds and Muska.
Okay.
Because Muska was kind of like the cool, edgy, the cool, edgy guy.
With the boombox.
And Reynolds was just, I mean, Reynolds was nothing but bangers.
Dude, the boss. Just hammers.
But yeah, I mean, Reynolds, Muska. I also grew up like with a young Greco, Eric Ellington.
Okay.
Kind of like all those dudes coming up, and another whirlwind to see them kind of go up and go down and have downfalls and come back and be sober and all that kind of cool shit. So, yeah, I mean, it's as far as like favorite skater of all time, I don't think I'd be able to name just one, but Reynolds would probably be the closest.
What about your first skateboard? Talk to me about your first skateboard. Give me that. Give me that.
I still remember it.
How about give me the first skateboard and then just give me a quick rundown of like your first pro setup. So
there was a skate shop called, oh man, I'm blanking on the name right now. Sick. Shout out to them. Anyways, there was a skate shop that I went to that was not the one that I grew up at, but it was another shop, and they had a thing where it was like an older couple that ran it, like grandma, grandpa style. And they would do a thing where if you brought in a report card, for every A you had on your report card, you would get like 10% off.
Really?
So you could get like $100 skateboard setup.
It's giving Chuck E. Cheese.
It was sick. But at the time, it was like, I think they did it because they didn't have a lot of business. Like they were struggling as a skate shop.
That's sick though.
But for me, it was like, oh, sick. I'm never going to get straight A's. So like, there's no way I'm getting a skateboard for super cheap, but I can at least get like 1 or 2 maybe and like then convince mom to buy me a fucking skateboard. Yeah. So that was my very first skateboard ever. It was the toy machine graphic with like the knuckles. And I'll never forget, I had see-through like orange wheels. They were just like blank, unbranded wheels, but they were see-through orange, and I thought they were so sick. And then I remember skating it the first day, and like obviously
it was gone.
See-through orange just turns ugly, fucking gross color.
I was about to say,
and I remember being
those clear wheels are gone.
So disappointed when I skated it for like 3 hours and was like, oh my god, my wheels are ruined. And like I was definitely that kid that like wanted my board to look nice all the time, which is funny because that's like the total opposite now. But that was my very first skateboard ever. And to be honest, I think that was the only board that I ever bought as like a complete. Everything else I always got was just like a hand-me-down from Justin or just like random stuff that people didn't want anymore. Right. And then, like I said, I didn't skate for super long as a kid because when I realized like, oh, I'm not progressing the way my friends are, it was kind of like, how do I pivot to still have fun and not just be
kind of
frustrated and hurt all the time?
Absolutely. Talk about the impact of the Tony Hawk games that they had on you. I mean, because that kind of ties into, at least for me, it ties into like Toys R Us, KB Toys, Tech Decks. So now we're starting to see how like skateboarding is kind of like meshing in with like fingerboarding. So when that game dropped, how did that affect you?
I think when that game dropped, there was other games that were before that. Like, so Thrasher had a game on PS1 that came out first. That game was super sick, but it was really hard to play, especially as a kid. Like, the controls were messed up, where it was like very hard to do anything that was like satisfying. Yeah. But the Thrasher game was also like very small release. I don't even know if it came out like something you could buy. It might have just came with the magazines. But when Tony Hawk came out, it made skateboarding like normal, right? Like skateboarding wasn't really, it was still like weird to do. Like if you told your parents you wanted to be a skateboarder, or if you wanted to go skateboarding with your friends, it was like, no, you're just like going to go drugs. You know what I mean? Like it was not a normal thing. Tony Hawk came out and all of a sudden it was like, I mean, also like X Games and stuff like that kind of made it more normal, but it just kind of became a household name where all of a sudden it wasn't weird to want to buy a skateboard magazine or to go to the shop or, like it just became a mainstream thing, which, I know some people may think that that's not a good thing, but for me, it made it to where I could tell my mom like, hey, like instead of going to like Mervyn's to go back to school shopping, I want to go to this cool skate shop and get skateboard clothes. And like, convincing your parents to do that at the time was a new thing. Yeah, it wasn't a common thing like now. Yeah. Like Zoomies was not like prevalent like it is now, where it's like very normal to go to a skate style store and buy clothing. It was you just wore whatever mom brought home,
Right. Again, kind of bridging the gap between fingerboarding and skateboarding. Question for you. Do you think that it is possible for someone to fully love and appreciate fingerboarding if skateboarding was really not something they were into in their younger years or currently into?
I think it's possible. I don't think you will appreciate it as much as someone who does. Okay. And don't take that the wrong way, where like you don't have to skateboard growing up to love fingerboarding and then fall in love with skateboarding. Like you can discover fingerboarding as a 30-year-old man. Right. But when you find fingerboarding at that age, hopefully, and I would think most people are going to see that and get into it, and then that's going to dive them into actual skateboarding. Not like the physical, like, not that you're going to go buy a skateboard and try and learn to skate at 30 years old. I just mean like if you're fingerboarding and you get into fingerboarding past the level of like this is just like a dumb novelty toy. And it's
Right.
like, no, I'm like really into this. I would think that's going to spark you to watch videos. It's going to spark you to like learn those names and learn who the skaters are, learn the brands. I think it's something that's going to happen just naturally because like if you're into anything, you're going to want to discover what's past door one, right? Like you're going to want to go deeper and deeper. And I think you can't really go deeper and deeper into fingerboarding without like there's too much crossover. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like every good fingerboarding video is mimicking skateboarding.
Yeah,
and
it's like replicating it. Yeah.
yeah, and there's even videos where like they do replicate it like 1-to-1. Like here's the exact trick from this video. So like I think it would be pretty hard to discover fingerboarding and get into fingerboarding without. You don't have to have an appreciation for skateboarding, but I think you will develop an appreciation for skateboarding even if you don't have it from when you were younger.
Fair enough.
I think it's probably harder to do it that way. But I'm sure there's a lot of people out there that, yeah, like never skated as a kid and they pick up a fingerboard in their adult years and go, oh, this is cool. Like I want to try this. But like even just learning the trick names, like you have to figure that out. You know what I mean? Like,
I get it.
But yeah, I mean, that's another reason why like those video games helped a lot is because it made a lot of people familiar with the names and the trick names and how kind of the mechanics work without having to necessarily do it yourself. You know what I mean? Like I've never done a 360 flip on a skateboard. I never got that. That never unlocked for me.
Yeah.
But like I know the physics of it and I know how to do it because of watching videos. And you know, like the video games obviously help too. So it's like you can kind of learn just by doing that research versus having to physically do it yourself, you know?
Absolutely. So we're kind of now talking about baby Clay, teenage Clay, getting out of school, right? Did you go to college? You did go to college, right? You mentioned you have a degree?
Yeah. No, I'm an art school dropout.
Art school dropout. Okay. That's a degree in itself to some extent.
Yeah, I got what I needed.
Okay.
Put it that way.
That's fair enough. Let's talk about the transition from essentially like young adult college to essentially, you know, because I think you also mentioned that you worked in a skate shop, right? So let's talk about that. So after college, doing art, dropping out, where do we stand?
Yeah, so dropping out of art school was actually because of the job that I had. So
at a skate shop, or where was?
It's Zoomies, yeah. So if you don't know what Zoomies is, it's like a mall skate shop. And they're all around the country. They're like a huge.
So you're not like one of those Zoomies hater, like it's not a real core skate shop, or how do you feel about that? Because that's a totally valid thing that people talk about. Don't go to Zoomies, go to your local skate shop.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely believe in supporting your local skate shop for sure, especially because now I kind of own one.
I know, right?
But
a mini skate shop?
Absolutely support your local skate shop. But there are places in the country that don't have a local skate shop.
Okay.
And Zoomies becomes that. You know what I mean? Like
so it serves
if you go to
purpose.
Like some random ass town in like Arkansas, like they're not going to have a local skate shop. So it's like the Zoomies becomes that local skate shop for them. And I think that's what a lot of people that have that sentiment, I think are from, you know, like a populated area like California where there's like skate shops. You know, every city has probably 2 or 3 skate shops. We're very lucky and very spoiled because of that. You know what I mean? Like there are places in the world that don't have skate shops at all. And it's like they have to buy shit online or just get lucky when they get lucky. You know what I mean?
How long did you work at Zoomies?
So I was in art school.
Okay.
And
college.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I basically went to school because I wanted to learn graphic design specifically to start my own brand. That was what I wanted to do. Like in high school, I had a brand that started and failed. In elementary school, I was doing shit that started and failed. Like I knew that I wanted to, like by the time high school ended, I knew what I wanted to do. I wanted to have a clothing company. Okay. Or I wanted to start a skate shop. Or it was like kind of like half skate shop, half clothing company. I didn't really know what I wanted to do. I just knew that I wanted to do my own thing.
Okay.
So I went to school purely with the intentions of I am going to learn what I want to learn, and then I'm going to get the hell out of here because I'm not paying someone to like almost fail math again. You know what I mean? Like I barely escaped high school with grades, and it was kind of, like if you think I'm going to pay you like $2,000 to take literature, like no, I'm good. I'll take only art classes and then get the fuck out. You know, like, so
Oh yeah, for
that's
sure.
what I did. And the counselors there hated me because like I was never on track to get a certificate. I was never on track
Yeah.
to get a
You just kind of
bachelor's.
coasted.
I literally was like, I signed up for like if I had 6 classes, all 6 were art classes. Like I took only art
Dude.
or video production or something that had to
Okay.
do with art, you know, like,
Right.
and so I was going there. I wasn't really getting anywhere because then I said like there was nothing to for me there was nothing to get. I didn't care about a degree. I didn't care about any of that stuff. It was more like if I'm spending my own money on college, I'm gonna learn what I want and then dip. So kind of like halfway through my second year, I got hired at Zoomies because my thing was if I want to open a skate shop or if I want to open a business or do whatever, I don't know how the hell to do a business. So like, what better way to learn than to get hired at a shop, work there, and
Learn the
basically
in and outs.
steal all their secrets and
I'm
then
about
go
to
do it on
say,
yourself,
I was
right?
about
Like,
to say, that sounds like an inside job.
so, yeah, I went to Zoomies and I applied and I got hired just to be like a low level salesperson that was basically just folding t-shirts. And I kind of quickly realized like, oh, I'm kind of good at this. I can sell stuff to people.
Right.
And I think they also kind of saw that in me. And it was like, hey, like, can you work today? And I'd be like, oh no, I'm going to school. Like, they'd be like, oh, okay. Like, can you work tomorrow? And I'd be like, oh no, I have school. And they'd be like, oh, bummer, dude. Like,
Yeah.
we really want to give you more hours. And I'd be like, oh fuck, all right, well, I'll just like ditch video production and go work. And then
Oh no.
I kind of just like kept doing that over and over again. And then it got to the point where they're like, yo, like, we think you're like kind of good at this. Like you definitely could be like one of our main guys and like not just like a seasonal person.
Yeah.
But your schedule's kind of whack because you go to school.
Go to
And
school.
so I immediately was like, all right, sick. I quit school.
Which is wild for corporate America to just be like, yeah,
I mean,
school,
yeah.
fuck school. Like,
I mean, you
come
know,
to work.
Yeah. Shout out to Zumies.
Yeah, right. Shout out to me.
No, it was my choice. But I immediately was like, dude, yeah, if I can go learn and do this kind of shit and rather than go to school, like I'm out, like quit the next day and was like, bye.
Okay.
And then, yeah, it was kind of, to me, Zoomies became my college where it was like, I learned the business. I learned how to sell stuff. I learned
kind of the blueprint for like small business.
Yeah, kind of. I mean, it's
smaller-ish.
Yeah, say they are a large company, but it definitely, I mean, even just talking to strangers, right? Like that's not something you learn as a skill.
Okay.
When you work for someone like that or like any kind of retailer, like you have to talk to strangers all day. So now I'm very good at talking to strangers. I'm very good at talking in public, just because you're forced to all the time.
Yeah.
And they have like teaching seminars and stuff that like they teach you how to do that stuff. And it kind of just kept blossoming. Like I never intended on staying there. It was more or less like I have to get a job because my parents are kind of like bugging me to get a job. I don't want to work for like a lame company, so I'd rather go work for this skate shop thing.
Right.
And as soon as I realized I had success there, it just kind of like sucks you in, where it was just like, yeah, I might as well just stay here.
Just
I
stay
might
here,
as well
get
just, like,
comfortable.
become a manager and kind of follow this as my career.
Okay. So you're with Zumies for 9 years?
Yeah,
years?
probably like
Okay.
9 years.
So you're with Zumies for 9 years. You work your way up the corporate ladder. Now you're a bigwig, making the big bucks. Maybe, possibly.
Yeah, I was a high level store manager.
Talk to me about the transition between high level Zoomies, top executive, not really, but transitioning into essentially the start of like this is my time. Like, what did that look like? When was the moment where you kind of said, this is it? Like, I'm jumping ship, doing my own thing.
Yeah, as much as I want to tell you like a cool story about jumping ship, I got fired.
Shout out, dude.
Yeah.
Shout out Zoomies.
Shout out to Zoomies.
Dude, 9 years in the can.
Yeah, it was a little bit of politics, a little bit of my own self-doing.
I feel that.
Yeah, the decision just kind of happened for me. So I had wanted to do something for a long time. And honestly, like, it's funny to think like getting fired from Zoomies is like the best thing that ever happened to me, because I probably wouldn't have done this if I didn't have the choice made for me, because it's scary, like it's scary to leave a career where, you're decently high paid. You have insurance, you have, like it was a very good job when I worked there. And to leave that to do something else full time was something that I wanted to do, but I never did it because bills got to get paid. Like you gotta provide for your family. You gotta provide for,
you got responsibility.
Yeah. And it was scary to leave that. But as soon as I got left, it was fucking
As soon as
game
they
on.
broke it off. What is your life like now? I mean, because when you talk about like being fired from Zoomies and you're transitioning into what would become Slushcult as we know it today, like what is your life like at this point? Because now we're talking like adult, right? Adult responsibilities. Are you still living in Riverside? Like,
no, yeah. So okay, yeah. I started the brand pretty much right after I got fired, and obviously,
and that was in SoCal that you're working in Zoomies, not.
No, I was in the Bay Area.
Oh,
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So when I turned 18, I moved up north.
Okay.
And kind of just explored California. I worked in like 12 different shops that were all in different cities. Just kind of hopping on opportunities when I had them. And then when it came to be like, okay, like now I have the choice to be like, where do I want to go?
Right.
SoCal made sense. I grew up in Southern California and I love the Bay Area. It was sick being there for, 5 or 6 years, but it was definitely time to go home and kind of reestablish myself. And yeah, I mean, fast forward to now, a lot happened in between that, but I mean, I've never been happier in my life. Like we have a company that we get to have like this office, and warehouse, and, I get to now be responsible for employees. And it's insane. Like I never thought 10 years ago we would be sitting in my office doing a podcast about the brand.
Yeah.
Because it just never was meant to be a serious thing. It just kind of happened.
So, right. And so when you move back, right, where did, like, as far as like when the brand started, right? Because it's like now we're flashing back 10 years to the start of the brand. I mean, where did the name come from? When did the idea happen? Like, when did that spark, like, oh, Slushcult?
Okay, so kind of a crazy story. So when I very first started the brand, it was called Slurpcult. It was very similar, but it was different, right? And obviously it was because the theme of the brand was all based on like Slurpees and slushies, and it was kind of like it started as a joke on the internet.
Okay.
And I never thought it was going to go anywhere, so it was like, oh yeah, like we'll just call it Slurpcult. That's funny. It's like a cult about Slurpees. And we rolled with that for probably 2, maybe 3 years. And I didn't keep it a secret. Like I thought 7-Eleven was very aware of me. And
shout out 7-Eleven.
Like it wasn't like I was doing anything wrong. That was the name of it, and that's kind of what we started.
So so 7-Eleven owns Slurp?
They didn't at the time. Hopefully I don't have an NDA left.
Yeah.
But so anyway, okay. Let's do the easier version. So we're Slurpcult for 2 years.
Slurpcult.
I built up the brand from nothing. I started Instagram with 0 followers, and it just kind of started blowing up. I started making stickers in my garage. That started working, and then there were so many people that were asking for stickers. Mind you, I was just making like really crappy stickers out of like spray paint and like the mail labels that you get from the post office. And
it was the Slurpee cup, right? That we kind of know as the Slush logo now.
Yeah, okay. What became the logo. I was making those because at the time, I don't know, I thought I was cool, like doing street graffiti and like making stickers and shit.
Yeah.
Just being a dumb idiot. But I made the Slurpee cup and was like, oh, this is cool. Like, I'll post this on the internet and see if anybody wants one. And then like, it got to be like, I made 20, I made 40, I made 100, I made 200. Finally, I was like, yo, like, I can't keep making these stickers. Like, it's way too much work that I'm just like giving away for free.
Yeah.
And I was like, but this might be it. Like, I knew I wanted to do something. I just didn't know what it was. And this was kind of like, you know what? Like, this seems to kind of already have people that like it online. So maybe this could be a brand. So I hit up the people that I originally started with and basically told them like, hey, like, I really want to start this brand, and I think this could be it. But I kind of just want to see if I can roll with it, and we'll just kind of see where it goes. So we made like 10 t-shirts that I screen printed myself, and they all sold out. And then I was like, oh shit, like if these t-shirts can sell out, then yeah, maybe this is a brand. So I started printing more, and I started printing more.
Amethyst is here. Have her go around to the back.
Just let her in. That's fine.
Yeah. Shout out Amethyst, by the way.
We'll cut this out probably.
Yeah. Shout out Amethyst. Shout out her fingerboards. Shout out Del Taco. All right, let's do it.
Okay, so
you're doing the stickers.
We start with stickers. We evolve into t-shirts. T-shirts do well. I just kind of keep doing it authentically as much as I can. I'm doing like little markets. I'm doing like booths at my friends' events, and we're kind of just doing it very small scale, but like we're officially a clothing brand, right?
Okay.
I had a friend who worked for another company who was owned by like a rapper, and I would periodically do work with them, just kind of like selling t-shirts at their concerts and, you know, kind of helping out with merch. Mm-hmm. And so I'm in LA at this like big festival, and I'm working the merch booth, and a guy comes up to me who I don't know and is like, hey, don't you run Slushcult? And I'm like, what? Like, how do you know who I am? I'm just like a dude at a concert where there's like 30,000 people here. Yeah. And I was like, yeah, what's up? And he's like, oh, what's up, dude? Like, I want to introduce myself. I'm a buyer at Zoomies. Is there any way you can take like 30 minutes and like walk around the event with me and we could talk? And I look at my buddy and I'm like, yo, like, can I take a break? And he was just like, yeah, go for it. So I took a lunch, and we literally walked around this like huge music festival, and they basically were like, yo, like, we've been following the brand for like a year and a half now. Okay. And we didn't really think you were ready back then, but we think it has a lot of potential, and we want to bring it into Zumies. And I was just like, what is happening right now?
Wow. And this is still Slushcult.
Yeah, this is Slushcult. Okay. To this day, this is it all happened in very relative time, you'll see. So like 3 p.m., I get invited to sell my brand back to Zumies, which is crazy to me because, like I said, I got fired from there. The buyer had no clue that I even worked there. It was just kind of like a very random organic thing. Yeah. And I was kind of like, yo, is this cool? Like if I sell my brand to you? Like I used to work there. And he's like, yeah, I don't care. Like the brand's sick. Like let's do this. And I was like, all right. So I'm thinking like, holy shit, like my whole life just changed.
Right.
In between working for Zoomies and this, I was just kind of doing whatever I could to get by, you know, helping out at skate shops or whatever, like trying to sell stuff online and just basically being broke. And I was like, dude, like if I can get my brand into a store like Zoomies and it can pop off, like this is definitely life-changing stuff.
Yeah, totally.
So fast forward, we all get in vehicles and drive to San Francisco that night because there's another concert in San Francisco. And it was kind of like, yeah, I'll like go on tour, whatever with you guys. Like if you want help, like down, like I'll go. It's a free hotel. It's a free car. It's fine. When I get to the hotel, I open up my phone and there's a cease and desist letter from 7-Eleven.
Dude.
That basically says, hey, you know, we think you're cool, but you got to change your name. And I was like,
no way,
devastated,
7-Eleven?
I was devastated, bro. I literally went from, oh my God, my brand is finally going to take off and like be something and I might have a career, to it's over. It's like I'm in the hotel room crying, like to my friend. Like I'm literally, I think it's over. I call the dude from Zoomies and I'm like, yo, Mondo, I'm screwed. They took the name away from me. They took the name away from me. What do I do? Yeah. And he's like, who cares? He's like, we want you. We want the brand. Yeah. I don't give a shit what you call it. Just change the name. And I'm like, oh my God, like never thought in a million years that would ever be a thing. Yeah. So I'm like, all right, well, okay, maybe my life's not over. I just need to like panic figure out what I'm going to do in the next month to get stuff into stores when now I don't even have a name. So I immediately go online because like I feel like at this point with the experience that I have in stores, like I'm like decent at marketing ideas. And so I go online and I make this like huge counter It's like on January 1st, like the brand is over.
Oh wait, I've heard this one. This is a countdown, right?
We have this like huge countdown on our website. It's like this like kind of like spooky thing, like the world is gonna end,
like
or
an ominous countdown.
like it was kind of And no one knew I was changing the name. No one knew that we were gonna relaunch. It was just kind of like, yo, it's been fun, but like it's over. Everything's on sale. Buy it while you can. It's done. And in the letter from 7-Eleven, they basically said like, hey, like we don't really care about your logo. We don't care about all this other stuff. Like you're doing cool stuff. We just don't want the affiliation. So you have to remove the word slurp from your name because they bought the word slurp. And I was like, all right,
bought it out from under you.
But in their letter, which like I still have this like 14-page document, which is funny. In their letter, they're like, yo, if you change your name to Slushcult, we leave you alone. And I was like,
wait,
that's it.
So are you telling me
I have legal documentation?
Big bite connoisseur, big gulp connoisseur 7-Eleven named Slushcult.
I don't think they ever did that on purpose because I know they didn't do it on purpose because there's no way that they thought I would probably keep it going.
Right.
But they were like, yeah, like, you know, just for an example, if you change your name to like this and just take the word slurp out.
Wait, so they said Slushcult
in writing.
Yeah, 7-Eleven named Slushcult.
And I was like, dude, that's it. Like, we have to go with that. It's the same amount of letters. So it sounds the same. It's even like a better name because it doesn't have like any weird like connotation to it.
Yeah, with that little P.
Yeah, and like, but it fits in the same logos. It's the same, you know, it just worked. And so when the countdown went to 0, rather than the brand just dying and falling off, we switched the website. All the names changed. We had a brand new collection, and it was basically like, boom, just kidding, Slushcult is here.
Slushcult, that's so sick.
And we launched in Zoomies like a month and a half later. And
that is so sick. Okay, so you start with the stickers in your garage. You're doing that for 2 years. 7-Eleven punks you for the name. Well, in actuality, it's good they punked you because they gave you a better name. Yeah, shout out 7-Eleven. So I guess we'll still eat Big Bites.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. So now it's Slushcult, right? Is it a streetwear brand?
Yes. So maybe.
Okay. And I ask because in a previous interview, you were asked if it was like if you thought it was a streetwear brand, and you mentioned like a sidewalk brand, like it was kind of like
I never really
all
knew
over the place.
I never really knew what we were because streetwear at the time was kind of like a category that they gave you if you just weren't something else, right? It was like kind of like all the random shit that they couldn't put in a box was streetwear. And then streetwear had like its own kind of style where it was like very serious, very dark at the time. And we never fit in with that. Like my brand was neon colors. Like if you put me in a row full of 20 streetwear brands, we stick out like a sore thumb. And that's why I always told us like, well, we're like sidewalk at best because like I don't take myself too seriously. And it was weird because when they would put us in like trade shows, like we used to do like Agenda trade show, and they kind of stuck us in the same row with a bunch of other guys that they thought were similar to us. Yeah, and we never fit in, and we were always the weird black sheep.
And which actually you weren't. You were the neon green.
And we were the neon sheep that everyone thought was annoying, and we were having too much fun. And it kind of. We started, I guess, as a streetwear brand just because they didn't really know where to put us. Yeah. But we were always kind of like skateboarding adjacent. Yeah. And like, you know, the 90s vibes were kind of always there. It just kind of, there wasn't really a home for us. So they just stuck us in streetwear and said like, well, yeah, this is close enough.
Okay. Well, let's talk about the colors, right? Because you talked about the brand. Obviously, everyone knows like the Holy Trinity colors, right?
The Holy Trinity.
Right. I mean, and because at the time, even now, like streetwear brands, like it's a lot of like darker colors, reds, whites, right? You don't really see too many pink, orange, and green. Specifically, how did we land on that color palette?
So when we were starting to do the brand, and we wanted to make the logo, like I said, I was kind of already doing like really crappy graffiti. And I was like making like stencil stickers in my garage.
Stickers, right.
You know, like I grew up idolizing people like Shepard Fairey and like the brand Obey that did like sticker campaigns and kind of like street graffiti, street art, I guess. And I don't know, I was just doing that as like a thing to pass time because I thought was funny.
Yeah.
And I just happened to have neon colors in my garage. And when my homie was like, yo, like, what if I just like drew this like Slurpee thing and we did that? And I was like, oh, like, I already have those colors. Like, let me hit it up real quick. And I was like, oh, green, because that's like a flavor you'd have, orange. And like, it kind of, the very first one really happened on accident.
Yeah.
But then as soon as I saw it together, I was like, yo, this is tight. Like, I always grew up like having like orange BMX bikes and having like bright colored shit, which is like, I don't know, I just was drawn to it. And as soon as I saw it, I was like, you know what? Like, this could be something because it's really recognizable. And even if it's not necessarily done the same way each time, or, you know, it's like, like when you think of a brand like Tommy Hilfiger, like Tommy Hilfiger is a huge company, but like you immediately think red, white, blue, because that's like kind of their theme. When you think Coca-Cola, you think red, right? Like I wanted something that had that similar feeling where it's like, it's not necessarily logo based. It's like when you see those three colors, you think of me, whether you want to or not. You know what I mean? And so we kind of just kept sticking with it and kept sticking with it. And it was really tough in the beginning because those colors are not easy to work with. Like they're not easy to silk screen. They're not easy to print on paper. But it set us so far apart from what was current at the time, which was like, again, it was a lot of dark blacks. It was a lot of like heavy, dark themes. It just set us so far apart where I think people kind of saw it as like a nice, refreshing type of moment. And we just kept sticking with it for so long that now I don't think we could ever get rid of it, even if I wanted to. It's just us now.
So with skateboarding and fingerboarding being like arguably a male dominant hobby, right? Do you feel like you've ever had any setbacks or like any issues with the color palette, more specifically the color pink?
No, because I think very early on in the brand, my goal was just to push that boundary. Like having those colors be involved and having like the themes that Slushcult represents has always been like, screw the norm. Like we're going to do what we want. You know what I mean? Like, I think it's like that, the punk rock in me that like, is like, oh, if everything's dark black and serious, then I'm going to be bright and fucking obnoxious and funny and not care.
Right.
And I think because that ethos of the brand has kind of always been there, I don't think we've really had pushback from that. If anything, I think we've kind of opened up the community to that kind of stuff because they see what we're doing and, you know, hopefully think it's cool. And then they realize like, oh, like I can wear a colored shirt instead of just a plain gray shirt all the time. You know what I mean? I think my goal is to make people feel comfortable being themselves. Yeah. And I think a lot of people have that stuff inside. They're just afraid to express it because they don't see other people expressing it.
Yeah. Well, one of my first experiences with Slushcult was when I first got into fingerboarding. I saw someone do a kickflip over your sign. Those little signs you used to sell.
Sick.
Where it's like the about the homophobia and the fat phobic and stuff like that. And I just thought that was so sick. And so like when it comes to like the color pink and kind of leaning into more like themes that would be sometimes looked at as like feminine or just not manly and like hobbies that are so like that's not an issue for you.
No, because
you lean into it.
Yeah, fuck all that.
Yeah, hell yeah.
What's like tough and manly about playing with a pretend skateboard? You know what I mean? Like it's
shots fired.
It's kind of like, I mean, there's nothing wrong with taking it seriously. I take it very seriously. Like my whole career is based on this, and like now other people's career are depending on me, right? So like, it's not that I don't take it seriously, but you got to be able to have fun. You got to be able to make fun of yourself. And to me, you know, like I said, it's all about expression. And if bright colors aren't for you, we make stuff that's not that also. You know what I mean? But if you want to wear something brighter or wear something that's more like gender bending or whatever, like Slushcult has always been the brand for that. We've always had a heavy female audience, which I think kind of helped in the very beginning because we didn't come into fingerboarding as a new company, right? Like fingerboarding entered the brand 8 years later. Right. So like we were already a very established brand. And I think the established ethos of Slushcult was always, we welcome everyone. I don't give a shit who you like, who you love, who you fuck, who you do whatever. Like it's none of my business. I'm here to be welcoming to everybody. And it's kind of, since it's always been such a big part of the company, I think when fingerboarding came, it was like too hard of a barrier for anyone to not accept. It was just too bad. This is who we are.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
You know, if you listen close, you can almost hear a core guy out there punching the air right now that you just said that. But
yeah, I mean, we're core as heck, dude.
Super core.
It's crazy.
Well, okay. So jumping a little bit here, right? Because Slushcult, essentially after the name change, right? It's full on pins, clothing, a lot of that stuff.
Yeah, we were a full on apparel company for 8 years.
Right. But this is not an apparel podcast. This is a fingerboard podcast, if
True.
you couldn't tell. So
True.
Tying into the fingerboard aspect, right? When I first met you, we had a conversation about if you kind of felt like if you had an issue with, like, more so like was Slushcult in your eyes a clothing brand who sells fingerboards, or if you were a fingerboard company or a fingerboard shop that sold clothes.
Yeah.
And I'm curious to see, I mean, because at the time it was like, you know, we're definitely a brand who sells fingerboards, but now, I mean, you manufacture your own fingerboards. So I'm curious, do you still kind of see Slushcult as as a clothing brand who sells fingerboards, or is it now kind of morphing? And are you okay with that?
Yeah, this has been something that I wouldn't say is like a struggle, but it's definitely been a theme for like the last 2 or 3 years. Yeah, we started as an apparel company, and we opened up the Slushcult Mini Mart as a clothing store, which is kind of how fingerboarding came into my life anyways. But yeah, I think it depends on when you found us, right? So like the older fans who were around since 2014
like clothing days, yeah,
like they're going to view us as like, oh, it's a clothing company, and now they've pivoted to fingerboards, right? But there's also all of the new audience that we've had that have only known us as a fingerboard shop,
right?
So I think it kind of depends on the perspective, but to me, I was always very open to like, we're just gonna be Slushcult. It doesn't matter. Like, we've done collaborations with Dunkin' Yo-Yos. I don't consider myself a yo-yo company, right? Like,
right. Oh, that makes sense.
We've done collaborations with Sweet Kendamas. Like, by all means, I'm not a kendama brand. I can't even figure out how to do tricks with that thing. But like, fingerboarding started as just kind of one of those other niche accessories to make.
Right.
But I think the more and more I fell back in love with it, the more and more I was okay with like, okay, now we're no longer a clothing company that sells fingerboards. We're a fingerboard skate shop, you know, and it's kind of, it's taken probably 2 years to kind of go through that transition and let my ego kind of die and be okay with it.
Be okay with
also, when I first started posting it, I was just really scared that people were going to think it was dumb. So like, when I first started posting fingerboarding clips on Slushcult channel, I was terrified that it was just like, dude, we're like a streetwear brand. Like, yeah, we're goofy and silly, but like, this is like,
but not
this is
goofy.
pretty extreme, change. And it was funny because I kind of just like slowly started leaking it in, where like I would do like a picture of, like we used to do like run your pockets posts on Instagram, and it would just be like my wallet, my keys, and then I'd throw like a tech deck in there just to see like, let's just like kind of test the waters. Yeah. And everyone was like, "Oh, dude, tech deck, that's crazy! Like I had those when I was a kid." And I was like, "Oh, okay, it's not as bad as I thought it was, right?" And then I kind of like started posting clips every once in a while, and I noticed it like I thought I was gonna get hate for sure, and I immediately was met with like, "Yo, this is so sick! Like this, like I can't believe you do this. This is so cool!" Like, and I was like, "Damn! Like this is definitely just another one of those opportunities where I never meant for this to be in this category, but like if it's gonna work, it's gonna work, and like I'm passionate about it, so like why not just integrate it into the brand? You know what I mean? Like if I started like really playing tennis tomorrow, like I'm sure I'm gonna do a fucking tennis collection with Slush. Like it's kind of like
Slush tennis.
Slushcult is just an extension of me, right? Like it's me. It used to be me on t-shirts. That's what I always told people. Like there's no meaning behind Slushcult. It's just me artistically on a shirt. Now it's me on a fingerboard, or me as a skate shop, and it's kind of always evolving. But yeah, I mean, to answer your question, it was a weird 2-year transition of like trying to figure out who we're gonna be. But
Get that identity back?
We're actually launching a new website, hopefully this quarter, that will integrate everything even further. Because when we first launched the website, it was like you had to click a separate button to get to the fingerboarding stuff.
Right.
Now that will no longer be the case. So when that happens, that'll kind of be our full evolution, I think.
Right. How important was it for the brand to go from just online to having like a storefront?
For me, I don't think I ever realized how important it was going to be until now, like 3 years later.
With the fingerboarding?
Just with the shop in general. When we opened the store, it was mostly because like I wanted to have something that I could build culture with, right? Like I'm really into like everything that we do has to be authentic. Like it has to come from a place of authenticity. It has to be something that I'm really into. And I also want to build culture and community behind what I'm into, right?
Right.
So when I opened the shop, it was more or less just like I just really wanted to have a place where people could gather, because we do events, we do trade shows, we do, events with Zoomies, and it was kind of like, damn, I really like this feeling when we can do an event and people come and they're so hyped, you get to talk to everyone, and like, it's kind of like that community aspect more than just it being on your phone. Like you can make really good communities on the phone, like with Discords and, whatever, but like it's not the same as being in person with each other.
Right.
So I wanted to have something that was in person, and then, but at the same time, I never expected it to make money. I never expected it. It was, it was a marketing tactic. It was like, hey, we can open this little store. I can have myself or someone kind of stand there for 6 hours, and we make money. Cool. If not, at least it's like a cool place we can throw parties at.
Yeah.
Almost immediately, it was the opposite, where people were going to the store all the time. And I was like, holy shit, like this worked way better than I thought it was going to. And I think it's because when we opened the store, I think a little bit of luck happened to where I think people were craving that in-person experience, right? Yeah. Like people were craving, I don't want to just shop at an anonymous website.
Yeah.
And, it kind of goes back to that whole, like the mascot thing, right? Like, I want to go to this store or this skate shop or this whatever, because I want to feel like I'm putting money into this person's pocket.
Right.
And supporting this person, like really there, like, and I always had that craving because like I grew up going to stores like Benny Gold or Mishka, where like the owners of those brands worked those stores. So like you could go into a Benny Gold and see Benny behind the counter and be like, hey, what's up, dude? Like high five him and buy something. You know what I mean? Like, so like to me, it was like, I don't think I realized it was going to work that well. It was like a subconscious thing where I was like, you know what? Like, I think this could be a thing. We just have to figure out how to make it a thing, because opening a store is obviously not easy. It's not cheap.
Is that like, as far as the sense of community, is that kind of like where the Saturday shop sesh comes from? Because the last Saturday of every month, as we come to know, free fingerboard sesh at the Mini Mart.
Yes.
Right? Is that how that kind of played in, or?
Yeah. So when we brought fingerboarding into the shop, it was just tech decks, right? So like when we opened the shop, we carried tech decks because the goal of the store was I wanted to mix my clothing with like 90s nostalgic stuff that I grew up with as a kid, right? So like we started carrying yo-yos, we started carrying like random candy and drinks and shit that I grew up drinking. And then I bought tech decks, and I was like, oh, like I used to mess with tech decks heavy when I was like in elementary school. And I've kind of always loved tech decks. I just never knew fingerboarding was like such a huge thing past tech decks. And then as soon as I saw the community behind fingerboarding was when I really was like, you know what, like I need to bring fingerboarding into the shop, and like we need to sell fingerboard products at the store.
Right.
Which obviously that was a huge transition in itself that we did just kind of slowly over time. And then as soon as we had stuff, it was like, yeah, like when I grew up, it was like the skate shop had demos, and like pro skaters would come out and hang out with the kids and do giveaways and do raffles and like bring ramps and skate. Right. And I was kind of like, well, yeah, like this should definitely be a thing at the shop,
And it kind of ties into the shop culture you were talking about earlier, right?
Yeah,
when you were hanging out at skate shops, right?
The thing that kind of immediately hurt us was that when we opened, COVID happened. So like we were open for like 3 months and then COVID shut us down. So we were almost closed for, we weren't closed, but we were a kind of like a drive-through walk-up window.
Wow.
For a while.
Oh, I remember that.
Yeah.
I didn't go to I hadn't been to the store yet, but when I first because now we're getting into territory where I'm just coming into the picture myself.
Yeah.
And that's kind of what I remember the Instagram post of like the little plastic glass and had like
we
the
had to
ice
have
cream.
we had to have a divider and like it was kind of as close as I could get to like a drive-through.
Right.
And yeah, the shop session kind of happened towards the end of that when people started going outside again and COVID kind of went away, and you know, like there was a lot of stuff that happened that year that was like very volatile and very like we had to close the store like 3 times.
Yeah.
And it sucked. It was
a long
heartbreaking
time,
because you know, all I ever wanted to do was have a store. I finally get to open a store and then it's like, nope, you got to close it. And it's like, oh, dude, this sucks. But when we started kind of opening back up, I was like, man, I really want to like start doing an event where like it's more like community, because some of the other events had kind of gone away at the time. And I was like, dang, it would be really fun to like start doing events, but I don't want to do anything crazy because it's kind of still COVID times where it's like, I don't want to be the guy that's like, oh, this brand Slushcult throws a massive COVID spread, you know, event.
Absolutely.
And so I was kind of hanging out the shop because I was working the actual counter a lot more back then. And our good buddy Mike, White Mike Obstacles, he was just happened to be there, and he was like, hey man, like would you be down if I just like brought a park like next Saturday and like we just kind of like
Mike.
hang out? And I was like, yeah, but I don't want to tell anybody about it because I'm like afraid, like if 50 people show up here and then someone gets sick, like it's on me, you know what I mean? So I told him, I was like, I'm down to have you bring your park, and like I'll bring out like a park that I'm gonna make, and we'll just kind of like hang out and just chill, and like whoever shows up, but like I'm not advertising it, I'm not posting about it, it doesn't have a name. It was just kind of like, if you happen to be there,
couple guys hanging out with some little wood.
If you happen to be there that day, then you got to experience it.
Yeah. And
that was the very first shop sesh ever, was literally me and Mike and like the 6 customers that came. Damn. And it was like, well, this is cool. Like I like doing this. And he was like, yeah, man, like if you're down, like I would do this again. And I was like, yeah, sure. Let's, you know, it's better than me sitting here by myself all day.
So that's how it was born.
And that's how it was born. And it was kind of like, you know, obviously there was other events, like Sorry for Fingerboarding at the time that were happening, but they kind of were happening more far in between. And it was like, yeah, I think there's people obviously want to do stuff. They just don't have a place to go. And now that we're that place to go, let's see if we can foster the community even more and like start throwing an event. So it kind of just grew and grew, where we did probably, I would say like 4 or 5.
Yeah. Well, now they're massive.
Yeah.
I feel like the last Saturday of every month, it's like the place to be if you fingerboard is Slushcult.
I mean, yeah, I'm very grateful for that. It's amazing.
Yeah.
Because I mean, like I said, the first 4 or 5, there was probably 5, 6 customers there. Like it was just who was there that day got to skate the parks.
That's it.
And then January, I don't even remember what year, but like there was a time where I was like, you know what, like now it's kind of better where like people are outside and it's not like a scary thing anymore. And I was like, I'll actually put like a name on this and like we'll post about it.
That's super
And sick. So we did our very first shop session, and I think like, I don't know, 20, 30 people showed up, and I was hyped because I was like, yo, dude, like
this is something.
This is sick. There's like 20 people here. This is crazy. And now fast forward like a year. I mean, we've had like 200 to 300 people at the shop before.
Shout out Shredder Mania.
Yeah, I'd say especially with your event and like the event that we did with Black River and like awful. I mean, it's
crazy.
It's crazy because, like I said, 10 years ago, if you ever thought that I would be throwing like fingerboarding events, I would have never believed you ever. And now that I do it, it's all I want to do for the rest of my life.
Hold that thought. We're gonna wrap it up. I have a couple questions for you, but it's funny. It's funny that you say that because I have a couple more questions for you, and one of them involves that. So 5 years ago, in an interview with Youth Cafe, when asked about the future of Slushcult, you said, "I'm in it for the long haul. I want to do this forever." All these years later, is that still your stance?
Absolutely. It's funny because the longer that I do it, the more that I start to worry about legacy, right?
Right.
Which sounds cocky if you don't have the context, but to me, it's like I only worry now, like, what is the legacy that I'm going to leave behind?
Right.
What are people going to say 20, 30, 40, 50 years from now, right? What am I going to be able to leave my family? And, you know, like when I'm not here anymore, how is this going to continue going?
Right.
So, yeah, I mean, long haul is definitely the best way to describe it, but it's more or less just what can I do to make sure that I get remembered the correct way when I'm no longer here. And hopefully by then it's still pumping and, you know, it's kind of, it just continues to go. Like I said, I always set up Slushcult to be like its own entity. It's never been about me. So hopefully it keeps going way past me. We'll see.
When you talk about legacy, and kind of like where Slushcult is going, or as big as it is now, just a couple more questions here. It says when it comes to niche hobbies like fingerboarding and skateboarding, there's always people that are so passionate about it that it's easy to look at a company as big as Slushcult and immediately think like sellout, immediately think not core, culture vulture.
Hell yeah.
Because it's easy to say that stuff, right? So if someone were here now making the argument that Slushcult was not a core fingerboard brand, was not a core skate brand, in few words, what is your response to that?
First of all, we're core as heck. You're wrong.
We're core as fuck.
No. Yeah, that's sick. Think that. Like,
Yeah.
That's fine. Go like a different fingerboard brand. That's cool because we probably work with them also. To me, the whole core aspect, I think even in skateboarding has opened up a lot over the past couple years to where people are realizing that being core is really cool, but having a sustainable business is much more important. And if in people's minds, like having a sustainable business that provides jobs to other people is not core, then so be it.
Absolutely.
But at the end of the day, you just have to look at what is that company doing, right? Like, what are they doing to give back? What are they doing to future the scene or the sport they're in? You know, and I think if you look at everything that we're doing as a company, let the work speak for itself. You know, like you don't have to look at the brand and think anything. Just look at what we do. And, you know, it ties back to like the Zoomies conversation, right? Like, yeah, Zumies might not be the corest skate shop in the world, but they're doing a lot for fucking skateboarding. Yeah. And a lot of these companies probably wouldn't survive if they didn't have big, giant orders from companies like that, right? So at the end of the day, it's just really looking at, it's more or less looking at what is going on behind the brand, right? Yeah. Are they just taking money from the scene and not putting anything back into it?
Absolutely.
Or are they putting money back into the scene? Are they putting steps and creating jobs and creating, you know, like there's a lot of fingerboard companies in the world. Like fingerboarding is definitely hitting a peak right now where there's probably more companies than there ever were, but really look at behind the scenes. What are those companies doing?
Absolutely. So in your mind, Slushcult, core.
We're core as fuck, baby.
Core as fuck, baby. Just a couple questions that that I wrote down. These are fan questions from myself, just because I'm a fangirling here for a moment.
I like it.
How did you become part of the 1% of fingerboarding?
Oh man, put me on the spot.
How do you? I mean, because realistically, we all know that the fingerboard Illuminati is real, and that Mike's the leader.
Yeah, absolutely.
How did you? I mean, how many scooter kids did you have to sacrifice to make that a thing?
Yeah, so it starts with a blood sacrifice.
Okay, I figured.
And then you have to have like 50 Berlin woods. And then you have to do a ceremony at Mike's house.
Are they still doing the waxing the legs with the foam grip adhesive?
Oh my god. Yeah, I mean, I could get why people say that, but at the end of the day, if you ever actually meet the people that you think are in the 1%, like we're all a bunch of fucking skate nerds.
Yeah,
like, that's all it is. And if you ever go to one of Mike's events or any event, like anyone who is a leader in the community is going to be out talking to people, hanging out with kids, you know, signing the occasional autograph. It's like, I think people that see that and think that are just too on the internet.
Yeah.
And they don't actually go to events and experience what it's like to be at one of those events. Because if you go to a rendezvous and meet Mike, like, Mike is the most chill dude ever.
Dude,
like, there's
he's
nothing.
So chill. Shout out Mike.
There's nothing ego about Mike Schneider at all.
And those amber glasses.
Yeah, it's
shout out Mike's beard. To be honest,
it's very humbling to see like someone like Mike, who is obviously well renowned in the community.
Oh my God,
is absolutely just one of us all the time.
Yeah.
And anyone who thinks that there's any kind of ego or weird shit going on just isn't involved enough to see it.
I got it. Give me a few words on Fingerboard Con coming up. A couple words.
Awesome. Be there.
Be there.
Buy a ticket.
Buy a ticket.
Make sure you stay an extra day at Rendezvous because it's the next day later.
Because we hanging out at the 99. Wait, is that what it's called?
Shout out to the 99.
Shout out to the 99, baby.
Oh, God. People are going to love that.
Yeah. Shout out to the 99.
Yeah, so Fingerboard Con is the first ever con style event
trade
for fingerboarding, which may look a little weird on paper, but when you go, I think you kind of immediately understand why it needs to be a thing, right? Because there's not really an event that exists that offers vendor booths.
Mm-hmm.
So like when I grew up and when I even fostering this career, we did trade shows.
Right.
Like Agenda Trade Show, Magic Trade Show was a place where you paid money to get a booth, to meet buyers and to meet customers. And it was kind of, fingerboarding doesn't have that. Most events are either just like trading out of your backpack or trying to sell shit like low key before someone catches you and kicks you out. Fingerboard Con is an open concept where people can pay to do a booth and it's public and you can come set it up however you want. You can sell whatever you want. And on top of that,
and that's you, Black River, Six Skate.
Yeah, so it's a three-way partnership between Six Skates, us, and Black River. It was definitely the brain baby from Vito from Six Skates.
Gross. Sounds kind of sick, but okay.
So yeah, so he had the idea to kind of throw like
Shout out
an
Vito.
after party for Rendezvous, and this was kind of like a morphed version of that idea where it was like, well, rather than just do an after party, let's just throw like a big kind of different style event, because we don't ever want to take away from an event that it's near, but it's going to be completely different from other stuff that's seen. We did the first one back in October in Southern California, and it was a wrap. I mean, it was rad.
It was dope.
We had,
I like the second panel personally.
We had like 300 or 400 people there. We did 3 panels. Obviously, Chris did a really cool panel.
Thank you.
We did like a Q&A, which is really cool because, you know, like I said, fingerboarding really exists on the internet. So to be able to put faces behind the brand, to be able to actually meet people behind the companies,
it's huge.
Especially companies like Black River that are very well renowned, but also very far away. Like they're from Germany. So like
Absolutely.
You might not ever have the opportunity to meet the founders and owners and creative directors and designers and pro writers from these companies that are from a completely different country. But because of events like Fingerboard Con, you can not only meet them, you can party with them, you can hang out with them, you can play games of skate with them, you can win free shit, you can buy stuff, ask them questions. So yeah, Fingerboard Con is very different because, like I said, there's never been a convention style event for fingerboarding, but I think it's necessary to continue to grow the scene and kind of see where it goes. And maybe 10 years from now, we'll look back at this and be like, oh man, we're a bunch of dorks, but at least we did it. And it's, you know, I think it's good to further the scene for sure.
Absolutely. Shout out Fingerboard Con too. The way that we're going to end these interviews is going to be like a no nuance, hot takes, no context.
Let's
10
go.
questions. It's a speed round. It's a speed round.
All right, let's go.
Right? I'm going to say two phrases or 2 words, and you just pick one or the other. Can't give any context.
Okay.
Okay? You get 1 pass.
Okay.
If you don't want to answer, you could say pass, and we pass to the next one.
Okay.
Speed round. Are you ready?
No,
Clayton McCarthy, Slushgod, are you ready?
Well, as ready as I'll ever be.
Here we go. No context. You just get to pick one and we move on.
All right.
I'm going to give you two and you say which one.
All right.
Don't think.
I'm getting my Zen moment.
You ready?
I'm ready.
Kick flip or heel flip?
Kick flip.
Plastic wheels or urethane wheels?
Both.
Skate games or Tony Hawk Pro Skater?
Tony Hawk Pro Skater for sure.
Tech Deck or Hot Wheels skateboards?
Tech Deck. Shout out the OG.
Shout out the OG. NSYNC or Backstreet Boys?
NSYNC.
Ooh. We might need some context on a later episode. No show socks or ankle socks?
Oh, they're both terrible.
Low key, I'm like, why do you know my ankle socks?
Crew socks.
Okay. Well,
hey,
okay.
bro. The higher the socks, the downer the fool. You know what I'm saying? Come on.
What you know about that, big dog? Tacos or burritos?
Ooh, tacos.
Skateboarding or fingerboarding?
Fuck. Fingerboarding.
Ooh.
I'll say fingerboarding.
Oh, I'm gonna clip that, bro. I'm telling you, bro. Someone's punching me hard right now.
Yeah, you know.
Grip or no grip?
On a skate fingerboard?
Both.
Definitely grip.
Definitely grip. Shout out grip tape. And then lastly, dynamic or Black River?
Oh, you can't put me in that position.
You got a free pass. You're gonna use it?
You can't put me in that
position. Shout out Scott. Shout out Black River Clay.
That's gonna be my pass.
Thank you, buddy. I appreciate you doing this with me. Bigspin podcast.